Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Meehan. I'm the Director of Communications for the Northeast Clean Energy Council. Today, I'm talking with Heather Takle. She's the President and CEO of PowerOptions and an NECEC Board Member. And we're talking about diversity in the climate economy. And so, Heather, great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here. And not only a board member, but also PowerOptions is an NECEC member. So we're all in.
Yes, which makes you one of our favorites. So anyway, you're a CEO. You're a woman. That's not necessarily a job title that a lot of women got to have 50 years ago. So I'm going to start you off with the big question. Did you always think of yourself as being on a CEO track? Is this something that was in the plan from the beginning, or did you evolve into it?
Sure. Well, I think it was probably spurred on pretty early. I remember in my middle school days where my mother's friends would ask me, what are you going to be when you grow up? Are you going to be a doctor? And I said, absolutely not. I'm not really that much into science, but my mother at the time was a CFO, and I'd seen her walk the track up from single mother to, being a CFO. And she was kind of my idol, as many kids have with their parents. And I think I got that into my brain that I wanted to do business when I grew up. And I think within that was probably CEO, even though I didn't know those three letters at that time. And then it kind of started to become the letters of CEO, I think, while I was at business school and grad school. And I was working with a career counselor and on the couch and diagnosing what track should I take. And I think the words or letter CEO came out of my mouth then because I wanted to be a leader. I went to business school to be a leader that was inspired by the Marines. A gunnery sergeant in the Marines picked me up and said, Heather, you can be a leader. You are a leader. And I was really trained to do that and had hunger for that since then. So, when I looked out into the business world that I went back into after the Marines, I said, how am I going to have the greatest impact? What am I going to do to be a leader? And CEO is kind of one of those roles that you do that in.
Excellent. So Marines, world of business, traditional male spaces. How did you make your way in those spaces? How did you, navigate a path that wasn't necessarily laid out for you?
Sure. Well, I didn't really think of myself as a female, getting started in the Marines. I was a Marine. In fact, I think I downplayed intentionally being a female because there was, honestly, there was bias. I could see it. They might not have said it, but I could see it in how they treated females and fellow females. So my MO back then was to just outperform being a female. And I would, encounter the bias and just let them see from my, star performance that I could do my job very competently, better than many of the males. And eventually that won them over, and people looked and sought after me. I was a logistics officer in the Marines, and they sought my support. I was their go-to person for whatever the task be, whether refueling a tank battalion or getting, the infantry platoon up front, their supplies, the things that I did. I became a very valuable asset to them by just showing them my performance. And so I think it was in that experience and being in the Marines and downplaying my femaleness that I just worked off of that, my performance. But it's funny how my position has evolved a couple of decades later, and now thinking about being a female CEO and what I need to do to navigate the diversity in work, it's very different. Now I realize and recognize through various things that I do. I'm a mentor in NEWE, the New England Women in Energy, it's incumbent on me to help the next generation. I like to tell the story when I was a Marine that we had female generals speak to us and we're in awe, right? There's this female general, how do we go up and become her? And I was very disappointed in some of the answers and the kind of the guidance that we got from the female generals saying, well, basically suck it up. I got here by not having a family, not having a life, and things that also just didn't seem right that we would have to do. And so I like to tell every other leader, whether it be female or male, that it's incumbent on us to create the culture, the workplaces, the environment where female or male can succeed. And we need to change the wrongs and the inequities of the past. So I see it important for me as I have climbed the ladder to also look down and pull and create the environment for others to be able to succeed and not have to go through what we did or the female generals had to go through of the past. So it's my perspective and how I navigate and what I do, obviously has evolved in different points in my career and in my thinking and what I can do and the tools that I have and where I am in that career.
Do you feel that's making you more effective now as you've evolved in that thinking? Is that making you a better CEO as you've leaned into those things?
Well, it's funny. I'm very thankful that we're in an age where being a empathetic, transparent leader is popular, right? And
Yep.
some of that part of me probably comes from being a female too. But so I am in a better position, I think, now because, well, I'm in a leadership position, so I have the authority, the responsibility, the need to do and do it in that way. But I also happen to naturally be that way as well, of wanting to create that environment for others and help others succeed, in doing everything I can to, create that transparent, authentic leadership. That's the word, right? And just happy and, that's finally come about. Maybe it's because our percentages of females in leadership are going up too, that has come about. But I'm much more able to do that now in today's day and age and use the, lean on the authentic leadership that I was maybe 2 decades ago.
And how do you see that transforming the clean energy and climate economy spaces? How is that, you're talking to fellow CEOs, you're running your organization. What's the impact that sort of leadership is having?
Well, thankfully also, in many decades and generations later, that we are finally in an environment, I think, where real changes are happening. Unfortunately, it's been after hundreds of years of inequities happening that we've gotten to, and we've got another 50 to 100 years to go. But I do see around me with fellow leaders in the clean energy space, the momentum to make changes, the commitment and real actions within policy and regulation, as well as within the corporate world. Part of that, unlucky enough to go through a pandemic started some of that, right? And being able to have a workplace that is more flexible and allowing for equity amongst people of color and low income and specifically females, right? And we're able to do that now, thanks to a pandemic that got us to realize that we can operate differently in the workplace. And also, unfortunately, after finally enough times and the George Floyd movement got us all to recognize and stop talking and start acting. It's been really important, and that has, just filtered over into the clean energy space as well. So we're starting.
And I'm curious, because we spend a lot of time on this at NECEC, trying to make that connection between equity and energy, and that you have to advance on both tracks at once. And that seems like it's also the core of what PowerOptions has always been about. And so I'm curious to get your thoughts on, as you're bringing these things together, as you're addressing those equity issues, does that make us better able to advance on these energy issues?
Yeah, it makes it advance on energy issues more difficult, right? It'd be much easier to transition to clean energy if we could do it inequitably. That's the hard part, is to do it equitably. And yeah, so PowerOptions started with that mission to reduce the energy cost of the organizations, nonprofits, that were most under-resourced and not able to afford. And so to make energy affordable has always been our mission. And now we've evolved into making decarbonization affordable. And that is a really hard line to walk. It's kind of a high wire act, right? How do we both accelerate clean energy as well as make sure that it is affordable? But there are ways to do it. I mean, one of the example issues is that we have for the last decade, we've done a lot of great work in New England around clean energy transition, but we've done that at a higher cost than we should have, because those clean energy resources aren't being incorporated into the wholesale energy markets. So there are ways to do that, and to do that better than we have before, allowing for better affordability and making sure those that have previously been left behind benefit the most. So excited to see, from the federal Justice 40 to regional, the emphasis on environmental justice communities. We will get there, and we'll get there in a better way. But it is a difficult thing to manage both.
How important is it to have everybody, the people who that affects, at the table? The people can represent that at the table, rather than just the people who are trying to imagine what it's like for people who aren't them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the areas where we have the most work to do. In fact, this morning I'm at a forum discussing exactly that, and we had some individuals in the room while we were trying to brainstorm what can we do to better bring solar into communities. The folks, people of color that were in the room, that spoke up and said, well, you're not going to get it with the room looking like this, and you need to start bringing those people into the conversations and educating them that this is an issue, because they don't even know or think about it as an issue, because they're worried about other things like paying their utility bill, not just that, right? And they don't realize that possibly they could pay less if they were doing it with community solar, as an example. But it's going to take a lot of hard work, and the key to that is finding the existing communities and networks and influencers, and having them be, grassroots activist activity to get them on board and be driving to this goal and this mission of clean energy transition and equitable transition just as much. But it's going to be a hard work, and we're going to have to include people that have never been included before, and that takes language translation and a lot of resources and a lot of work and a lot of people at the table. But like NECEC and PowerOptions does as well, that's what we were born to do. We're a consortium and a collaboration and a convener, and we will, we're well positioned to be able to do that with maybe some different faces at the table than we have historically.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, thank you so much for being with us, Heather. Everybody, if you're not familiar with PowerOptions, get familiar with PowerOptions. We all need power, and we all should have better options.
Thanks, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Thanks so much, everybody.